Hello.
You gotta make a path.
We gotta make a path so we can push the car. Into the driveway. Hello, and welcome back to Hunter Tuned. Today we're gonna be hopefully putting the motor into the car. But I had to pull the car out of the snowbank and clear all the snow off of the car because, well, we live in Wisconsin and it's frigid, cold, and yeah, so I had to dust the snow off the car so when we push it into the garage, it's not a flood in here. And then I'm cleaning up the garage a little bit so we can have some room. And I got the rest of the motor put back together, so it's sitting here on the cherry picker right now. I got the clutch back on. I actually switched back to the 6-puck disc. So we're going to use the competition stage 4 clutch here. And I got my intake manifold on. The LS VTEC line is ran. And a couple people were commenting, wondering like, hey, you'll leak out of the block or whatever. But that's not the case. The only time it'll leak is if you don't have the hole plugged on the bottom of the head. But that is plugged, so we just have to run the external oil line to the cylinder head, which ain't no big thing. And then I got a expandable freeze plug into where the catch can is. I did that earlier. And then I tapped this to 3/8 pipe where the GSR has the oil cooler. So I tapped that and plugged it with a pipe tap. I got my sandwich plate on, the fittings are into the block, and yeah, got the water pipe installed, alternator, all that good shit. So yeah, it's literally just time to put it into the car. We just got to slap the transmission on now and go from there. But yeah, so I got Christian over here giving me a hand, and we'll see if we can slam this thing out. Alrighty, everybody, we skipped ahead a few steps and we got the motor back into the car. So we got everything plugged in. We got the axles hooked up, the shift linkages hooked up, and it's been like, what, an hour?
An hour.
Yeah, we actually made pretty good time on this thing. It probably only took us like 10 minutes to actually get the motor in here. We've got a pretty good technique going on this thing now. Just always start with the driver's side mount and work your way over. That is usually the easiest thing. A lot of times if you try to do the tranny first or whatever, it's just harder to get all the other mounts lined up. But yeah, so everything is going good. We're just, continuing to work away here. I got the shift linkage hooked up already and the axles. I just have to tighten up the axle nuts and then throw the tires back on. And then I got to throw my turbo manifold on. I got my new spark plug wires. I actually ordered a set of these VMS Racing plug wires. They're nice and thick.
What are they, 8 mil?
These are 10.2.
Holy shit.
Yeah, she's a thick girl. So we got some new spark plug wires that I'm going to throw on this thing. Probably, make it knock a little bit with the wires. Well, we'll see. I don't know. I'm kind of nervous. I also have to redo my starter wire because I had a crimp connector on here and the crimp connector actually busted off. So this connection down here broke. So I got a couple battery lugs from Walmart. I think I still have some.
Yeah, there's like 6 of them. So.
Yeah, so I just use these like battery lugs from Walmart and I fill them up. Oh, rip.
Throw them on the ground.
Yeah, so I usually just take these and I fill them with solder and then I heat them up so the solder is like, fucking melty, like, melty. And then shove the bare wire right into there and then let it cool. And then the wire will never, ever come out. So that's usually the way I like to do things. Crimp connections work, but I like the soldering technique a little bit better. So I'm going to have to redo that. I got to get some heater hoses on this thing, plug in the engine harness still. And then we got to put the valve cover back on. Put the radiator in.
Ready to go.
Should be ready to go. The only thing that sucks is I need a wideband still. Because the wideband that was out of this is now in my truck, and I don't really want to pull it all apart. So I got to find a wideband, and then I have to hook up my new oil pressure gauge because I bought a cheap fucking EQS, whatever, from AutoZone. So I just got this mechanical oil pressure gauge for the time being. We're gonna throw that in. I don't know what else. We got to do a couple things. So I'll keep you updated as we go, and if we run into anything cool, I'll film it. All right, guys, so we got the car pretty much ready to fire up. We just got to add some fluids. I got to put tranny fluid in it. We went to AutoZone. I got some coolant, some oil, and some transmission fluid that we can pour into this thing. And I had to redo my fuel fitting. I don't know if I told you guys this, but when I took the motor out, I had fitting on the fuel rail here, and it actually busted on me, like completely twisted and broke. So I had to go get a new Dash 8 90-degree fitting to hook up my fuel feed line. And I also converted my VTEC line to do a little 90-degree bend down in here. So this is my VTEC line. I bought a 90-degree fitting for this guy so I can run the hoses a little bit more neatly. Before, the line was actually interfering with the feed line, so I was like kinking the line a little bit that goes into the VTEC, into the cylinder head. So I had to redo that fitting and the fuel fitting. Those are all done. I got all the catch can lines hooked up. Yeah, they're fucking ghetto. Don't remind me. But these catch can lines are literally just here to serve a purpose. I will clean them up eventually, but these are just like hardware store fittings that I tapped into the valve cover and put some RTV on just to kind of do this for a temporary thing. I do have a whole nother valve cover up there that I'm going to be actually drilling and tapping and welding fittings into so I can do this a little bit more neatly. But that won't be quite yet. I'm going to do that later. Yeah. So anyways, the only other things, like I feel like I'm overthinking a bunch of stuff, but I got my return line hooked up to the pan. I have the boost controller plumbing all ran into the intercooler pipe here.
All we have to do is add fluid.
Yeah, I know. I'm just over fucking exaggerating stuff here. Currently hooking up gauges. We hooked up the oil pressure gauge into the back of the block where the stock sender goes. We hooked up a hose going there, and then I just ran that into the car. And now I am trying to figure out, I keep playing this wideband, musical widebands. Instead of musical chairs, it's musical widebands, because I have 2 widebands in 3 vehicles that all need a wideband. So my truck has a wideband, my Mustang has a wideband, and the Civic doesn't have a wideband because the Civic was broken, and then we built the truck. So the Civic didn't have a wideband because I tore it out of here to put it in the truck. Honestly, I feel like the truck is fine. It doesn't really need a wideband right now. Like, I don't know, it's fine.
Yeah.
I already know the tune is good. Like, it's been consistent, so probably gonna pull the wideband out of the truck quick so we can put the wideband into the back end of the Honda, because I'm actually changing my injectors. I had the Snake Eater 2200s in here, and I actually just switched over to different injectors. So these injectors my homie Chris gave me, they were actually in my buddy's Turbo Hayabusa, and they are like 1600s or something like that. Not bashing the Snake Eater 2200s at all, but I don't know if I don't have the right dead times for them or what the deal is, or if I'm just running too high a fuel pressure. I might have to just turn the fuel pressure down, but I could not get this thing to fire up cold starts at all. I tried a bunch of stuff. I could not get it to cold start, and I could not get it to, like, literally, like, we spent probably a good hour getting the car back from the storage unit back to my house, and we spent like a frickin' hour
Sitting there cranking.
no joke, dude. Like, we spent an hour cranking it, dead batteries, and then we were pushing the Civic with the Mustang around the storage unit,
Trying to pop start
it, and then we finally got it started, and we drove it back. But even when it was running, it would have a lot of popping and spitting and popping and spitting and popping, like at light throttle. And I mean, that's kind of the nature of a big ass injector in these cars. And I like a smooth running car, but I also like a lot of horsepower, so it's kind of a give and take thing. I'm just going to try these injectors and see if I can get it to run a little bit smoother. If I can't, we'll switch back to the 2200s. But for the time being, like I said, I'm going to try these injectors out. I already flowed them, and they flow almost as much as the 2200s. Not quite. Like I said, they're probably 1600 or something like that. They're definitely more than the regular flex fuel injectors, but we'll see how far they can go. Might be limited on fuel again, but we'll keep an eye on it and see. But yeah, so hooking the gauges up, I was in the car here, and I have my gauge pod pillar fucking mabob all torn apart. So I am currently wiring the gauges in. I have a new oil pressure gauge now. So I just have to finish that up, get the wideband back in this thing, and wire it to the ECU and do all that stuff. I have all the wires already ran up to here. I just kind of cut them off to, put all that stuff into the truck. So I'll just go rip it out of the truck quick. That shouldn't take me too long. And then once the wideband's in, pour fluid in and see if it fucking runs. What do you think, Christian?
Yeah.
Mint. Oh, story time. We went to the machine shop to get, because my engine builder actually stocks like Aeroquip fittings. So I went there to get a Dash 890, and I was just chatting with him a little bit, and I was just, telling him like, hey, I'm a little bit leery about the bearings when I grinded them down to fit the rod. And I asked him, I said, what's your honest take on, because I said the bearing was too wide. Everything else was like the same thing, like the same sizes, but it was too wide to fit the rod journal. And he's like, oh, we used to see this all the fucking time back in the day.
No shit.
No shit. And he's like, he literally said, he's like, oh yeah, that ain't no big deal. Okay. So like I said this to him. I said the bearing was too wide. And he like, a light bulb went off and he's like, oh yeah, just cut it down. Like that's literally what came out of his mouth.
Yeah.
This guy's been building motors for 40 years, guys.
And we didn't say anything about
we didn't. I did not even say I grinded them or nothing. He literally said just cut them down. He didn't say grind them down. He said cut them down. And he has a chamfering tool that was built in like the 30s.
1930s.
Yeah, in the 30s. And he has this little, it's like a file looking tool, and it chamfers the bearing to cut them down to fit the rod. He said back in the day, like they used to take small block Chevy stuff and like mix and match a bunch of parts and rod bearings
from
Ford shit, fit Chevy shit. I don't know, crazy stuff. But this guy like is a go-getter and he knows what he's talking about. And I highly value his opinion on everything that he tells me. So me grinding the bearings honestly gives me a little bit of peace of mind that it might fucking work. But like I said, guys, if this doesn't work, it doesn't work. We'll fix it. I'm honestly a little bit more skept about the rings and the fucking or the wear in the cylinder more than the bearings. But yeah, we're gonna try it. I mean, fuck, if it works, it works. If it don't, it don't. But like I said, he used to like make bearings from hand. They would like, he said old John Deere motors and stuff didn't even have like bearings that got made for them. You had to make bearings, and he would like pour the shit into the rod and like shape it to form and then cut them down and grind them down and do all this fucking crazy awesome shit. So that's just like a super cool thing that we were talking to him about. And yeah, he definitely is the type of guy to give me good logical advice. I know a lot of people are like, oh, that ain't gonna fucking work, but guess what, you're sitting on the fucking couch. All right guys, so we are back at it. I've been wrenching on this thing for a few hours now, trying to get it to start. I don't know really where we left off, but car is not starting. So it's had this issue in the past where like I was telling you guys, where we would literally be cranking for like ever. And that's why I kind of switched out the injectors or whatever to see if I can get it to start a little bit better when it's cold. The weird thing is even after messing with it a bunch, spraying brake cleaner down it and everything, it still doesn't want to fire. So I busted out the compression tester and I threw the compression tester on this thing, and it's got like 70 PSI across the board, which is super low. I was going to do this before I even put the motor into the car, but I didn't. And I'm kind of wishing I would have now, because I don't know if the rings that I used, considering they were reused and, not the right ones, obviously, I don't know if it's the rings not sealing or if it's the pistons, that the fact that they're beat up, because there was some like dings and shit in the pistons. You guys can source the older videos to kind of look at the damage. I don't have any pictures on my phone, but I don't know if the pistons are wore out that it's like this, but it's weird because it's consistent across the board. It's like 70 on every cylinder. It's not like 100 on one and then 20 on one and then 30 on another. Then I would think there's a underlying issue, but I don't know. Like I said, considering we did try to do this all for free and use reused rings and the reused pistons and everything like that. I don't know if that, I don't know. It's super weird. Like, usually, as long as, like I was telling you guys, as long as like the piston has piston rings on it and they're not completely broken or whatever, usually they work. So this is kind of like my experiment I was trying to see if this would work, considering it's all junk, literal junk. Considering this is all junk, I kind of wanted to just experiment and see if all the junk together would still work or not. And I'm just trying to do this to help learn with you guys and to help learn with myself too. So, yeah, super weird. I checked the valve lash just now, and it's a little bit tight. It's on the tighter end of the spec. I want to say like they're like 6 thou on the intake and maybe 8 on the exhaust, which, I mean, a thou or 2 difference really shouldn't make that big of a difference, I don't think. The timing is spot on. It's got spark. It's got fuel. Like I said, even with brake cleaner, it won't start. So that's why I bust out the compression tester. And it's weird because with these pistons being such a high compression ratio, it should have more than 70 psi compression, unless my compression tester is bad and we just have some other underlying issue. But it doesn't even want to pop or anything, so I'm thinking it's compression related. Maybe I'll try another gauge, but I highly doubt it because I actually have this specific compression tester and it's labeled good one. So I don't think it's that, but I don't know. Maybe we'll have to pull it back apart quick and figure out what I'm going to do. The only reason I did this, guys, like I was saying, is because I had all this stuff sitting here. So if it didn't work, it didn't work, It's just worth a shot to see if I can get away with it for free, not have to spend any money. But like I said, I don't know. I think these pistons might be bad, like not usable. Or it's the rings. I don't know. Like I said, usually if there's rings there, it should seal and it should work, but maybe not. Like, I don't know. It's kind of stumping me. So, I don't know what pulling it apart's really even going to do for me. If I'm going to figure anything out by pulling it apart, because I put it all together and then I pulled it back apart and then I put it back together again just to kind of, like, I put the pistons into the bores and then I pulled them back out just to kind of look at everything and see like, hey, this is good or bad or whatever. But now that I'm thinking about it, maybe those rings, because they were bigger, for a bigger bore or whatever, maybe they don't have the spring tension to them to kind of push out onto the cylinder. Maybe it's just a ring issue and we can just re-ring the pistons, and maybe they'll work then. I don't know. We'll have to see. So tomorrow I might come out here and pull this thing back apart. I'm half tempted to leave the motor in the car, honestly, because yeah, I could just pull the head off and the oil pan and pull the pistons out to kind of look at everything and maybe try a different set of rings and see if that fixes it. Not sure. Not exactly sure. So leave your suggestions down in the comments, maybe what you guys think it could be if you've been following along with the build. The cool thing is, though, is it's got 20 pounds of oil pressure just cranking it. So if the oil pressure seems to be doing okay so far. The bearings obviously could maybe give me issues later, but we'll see. This is all for experimenting, just kind of having fun and messing around with stuff. So I'm going to take it as a learning experience so far, and hopefully you guys will learn with me. And that's what this channel is all about, is kind of just playing around, messing with shit, and doing stuff you're not supposed to. So anyways, thanks for watching the video, guys, and hopefully you enjoyed, and we'll talk to you soon.